Now, Weekend Life.
Welcome into Eat Drink Singapore here on Weekend Life with me, Justine Moss. Now, this hour we discover a distinctive flavour-forward portfolio of single malts and a new look inspired by the distillery's creative heritage here in Singapore. A little later on, we shine a spotlight on sustainable food with hashtag A Recipe for Change, a month-long campaign highlighting how our food choices impact the environment. But first, here's the news. Welcome into Eat Drink Singapore here on CNA938 with me, Justine. Now, Benriach Distillery is located in North Speyside. It's recently launched a distinctive flavour-forward portfolio of single malts and a new look inspired by the distillery's creative heritage in Singapore. Well, it's known for its long-standing tradition of distilling classic peated and triple distilled whisky and a vast eclectic cask inventory sourced from around the world. The portfolio has been artistically crafted by master blender Dr. Rachel Barry and her team. Well, Stuart Fear, Asia Regional Ambassador for Benriach, joins me now to describe these whiskies in detail. Welcome, Stuart.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Justine. Good to speak to you again.
Good to speak to you, and thank you so much for joining me on Eat Drink Singapore. Now, Stuart, before we talk about Benriach and its new portfolio of single malts, give us a little snapshot of your journey in the industry.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my journey actually started in Taiwan. So I'm in Taiwan right now,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been living there for over 10 years.
Great.
Taiwan is a huge single malt whiskey market, and of course, I'm from the UK. My mother is Scottish. I always grew up with Scotch in my home, and I was just always interested and intrigued by the history and the heritage of Scotch whiskey. Being in Asia, I saw how many people loved it, and it kind of inspired me to learn more about it.
Yeah.
And to say it simply, I mean, I made a hobby become my career. You know, my passion became what my job was. And then I'm now the regional brand ambassador for Asia. I normally travel around Asia. I don't anymore with them, obviously, like bans and restrictions. But soon that should change, and hopefully I'll be back in Singapore soon.
Fantastic, and we look forward to welcoming you, of course. But the region as a whole, Stuart, I mean, you say you saw the sort of the passion for consumption, and I guess that's grown the 10 years that you've been in Taiwan. What's it like here in Singapore? The same sort of increase?
Yeah, I mean, well, the way I've seen it in Singapore, it's just taken off so quickly. Everybody has really jumped on the Scotch because it's bandwagon almost. Everyone wants to be drinking Scotch and be a part of it. And what's actually happened is, originally, a lot of people seem to be drinking it, but not learning about it. What I've noticed now is there's a big move, and everybody wants to learn about it and understand how we make it and why we do it that way. And they want to find more unique parts. It's not just about drinking the big brands. They sometimes want to drink something more unique, like our Benriach.
I'm glad I pronounced it correctly. I was waiting for you to say it. Now, Stuart, describe the Benriach distillery for us. Give us a little bit of a history.
Yeah, I mean, well, we're in Speyside, which is the biggest Scotch production region in Scotland. There's over 50 distilleries in the region. We are one of them. And we are a small distillery. We were founded in 1898. Unfortunately, the distillery didn't last very long at that time. We closed after around 2 years. And the distillery actually stayed silent for 65 years.
Gosh.
But during that time, we were very fortunate that we had our floor maltings to keep us surviving, which is a very traditional way of producing malt to make whiskey. And it's a tradition we actually continue to this day. Of course, when we reopened in 1965, we were producing whiskey mostly for blends.
Mm-hmm.
We became sort of a major ingredient in making blended whiskey. And we actually started to experiment. We have a very experimental side to it. And like you mentioned before, we also make peated whiskey, which is rare for the Speyside region. And it's something we've done since the 1970s. And it's a tradition we do still continue until today. Talking about more modern Benriach, it's all about that experimenting and playing. You know, it's kind of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. We play with how we make the spirit, we play with the casks we use, and it's just a really fun distillery, and we are making things that other distilleries in Scotland never even try to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Master Blender Dr. Rachel Barry and her team have crafted these new single malts. Go into detail, Stuart, on the new collection and their unique flavour profiles, their complexity, etc.
Okay, sure. I mean, it's mostly about creating and doing things a little bit different. And what we noticed with the new lineup, we have both peated and unpeated. We have the original 10, the smoky 10, the 12, and the smoky 12.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we have in this here also is quite a creative cask maturation. So you'll find casks in these 4 whiskies that you won't notice being used by other distilleries.
Okay.
And the way Rachel does it is she always uses words like balance. Whiskey needs to be balanced. She needs to synchronize and harmonize and make all the flavors just come together as one. We aren't necessarily emphasizing the type of cask we use. We're more just emphasizing the overall flavor.
Okay.
It's flavor forward. It's all about what's unique in this whiskey.
And then the 4 that you just said, obviously the original 10, the smoky 10, the original 12, and the smoky 12. If you close your eyes, you can really taste the difference, say, between all 4.
That's the really interesting thing. I mean, many distilleries, when you drink that whiskey, you can say the 12 and then the 15, and the 15 is more of just a step up in depth of flavour. But with those, there is really quite a large difference, and it's all down to those casks that we're using. We are using some casks that other distilleries don't use, and therefore we can create flavours that other distilleries are unable to do. We can get flavours in there that no one else can, unless they start using these casks.
And those casks, Stuart, there's oak, right? There's port, there's bourbon casks as well.
Yes, exactly. I mean, by Scotch regulations, we must use oak casks, and they can come from pretty much anywhere in the world. The ones we see in the new lineup, we have virgin oak, which is not used too often in Scotland, which, the brand new oak cask never been used before. We also have things like Jamaican rum casks in there. We have port wine casks from Portugal, and we also have Marsala wine casks from Italy. I mean, this tradition of using different types of casks we've had for a long time. But in our earliest days, we only used to see these whiskies in, limited editions or single cask release. But with the new lineup, we are taking these sort of rare, eclectic casks and we're putting them into our core range and giving it to the wider audience to be able to try and experiment with.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm going to ask you about food pairings a bit later. But Stuart, you mentioned how you've been in Taiwan for 10 years. You've seen the rise and the appreciation of whiskey consumption around this region. But for Benriach, for Singapore as a whiskey market, how important is Singapore?
Well, of course. I mean, look at now, Singapore market, Southeast Asia is growing so quickly. And I mean, I've been to Singapore a few times for work, previously before the whole Corona thing. But I mean, it's just incredible to see the growth. I mean, so many bars now are using Scotch whiskey, and it's just totally changing what we do in Scotland. And I think it's just fantastic to see this growth. But I mean, Benriach, of course, is a very important market right now. If you want to grow your whiskey, you need to be in Singapore.
Yeah,
you need to be there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, have you got a favourite from the current selection by Dr. Rachel Barry?
That's like trying to ask me my favourite channel.
I thought you were going to say that. You love them all.
We don't have a favourite, but we truly do.
No, not to worry. No, I won't put you on the spot by naming a favourite. I mean,
me personally, I'd probably go for the 12 or the smoky 12.
Yeah.
But for me, the 12, it just has this real sweetness to it, which is kind of like a dessert.
Yeah.
I always think about like raspberry pies and this kind of thing. It has lots of berry notes. It has a very desserty feeling to it. And again, what I find unique about it is there's an aroma and flavour there that you can't find with other Scotch whiskies from Scotland.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you get to the Marsala, I mean, in the smoky 12, it's peated Speyside whiskey. I mean, and a lot of people, when they hear it's smoky, they might worry. I mean, it's one of those things, smoky and peated are quite different. If you talk about peated, that's more like the Island and Isla style of whiskey. Whereas with Benriach, we are smoky. You could almost say it's more like a barbecue or a charred meat. I always used to say to people, this whiskey has a sort of like a tarsu kind of flavour to it, like smoked meat, that kind of thing.
And possibly a little bit more subtle than the overpowering peaty sometimes as well. You're listening to Eat Drink Singapore here on CNA938 with me, Justine Moss, and I'm speaking with Stuart Fear. He is the Asia Regional Ambassador for Benriach. He's joining me from Taiwan. We'll come back and talk more in just a moment. Welcome back into Eat Drink Singapore with me, Justine Moss, and I'm speaking with Stuart Fear. He is the Asia Regional Ambassador for Benriach, and we're talking about their wonderful new collection of single malts crafted by master blender Dr. Rachel Barry and her team. Stuart, we talk about the new packaging because I know that there's a reason for for this new packaging that we've seen recently.
Yeah, I mean, we basically looked at the distillery, and I mean, it's been there for a long time, since 1898 till now, and it's always been a whiskey that has been used in Scotland. It just never really got the appreciation it deserved. It's been out for a while, and again, a lot of people didn't know about it, so we thought we need to make a bold approach. We just need to come out and say, look, we are Benriach, this is us, we're no nonsense, and we're there. So, if you see the new packaging, it's just very light, very crisp, very clean. And the most important thing is on the packaging, on all the bottles, we give as much information as we can. We tell you about the casks we're using. We tell you about the flavours we have. We tell you that we're not using colourants in our whiskey. And we just really want to, again, focus on the flavour.
Yeah, because it's really distinctive packaging. It's beautiful colour for a start, that light blue, and but when you see it from afar, you can notice it immediately, and the simple design, the lettering. But as you say, you've got all that information which people want. They want to know about the casks and the maturation, etc. Let's talk about some food and whiskey pairing options now, Stuart, and what food goes well with these whiskies.
Sure. Again, it's one of those things. I think with whiskey, it still has to be a personal journey. You kind of have to try it for yourself to really know what fits. Whiskey is a little bit more complicated when compared to, say, wine. It's not as simple as saying, white with fish and chicken and red with meat. It's not as simple as that. For me, though, what I'd say is the original 10. I would probably go with things like fruit dishes, or even like a salad, that kind of thing. There's a funny thing that Dr. Rachel Barry says, when she talks about the 10. She says she always thinks back to being in Taiwan when she had a pineapple cake, fong li su. The traditional fong li su, that pineapple cake flavour. She says that is the perfect pairing. When you get into like the 12, so again, like I've said, the 12, having those pork casks and sherry casks, I think it's quite a dessert kind of whiskey. I think it works well with different types of desserts, things with chocolate, things with berries, something with a little bit of tartness to it works really well. And when it comes to smoky whiskies, a little bit smoky, I just love it with meat, like barbecue meat, something with a bit richer, heavier flavour. One thing I think I know is that with the smoky 12, I always think it goes well with like black sauce. In Singapore, you have that black sauce.
Yes.
I absolutely love that black sauce. I just soak my rice in it every time I'm there. And I think that flavour, that the heaviness and the flavour just works well with this whiskey. Because it has those delicate notes and a bit heavier notes that mix well with it. And I think it's an important thing when it comes to food pairings is it's about experiment and just giving it a try.
Yeah. And
I think
sorry,
cocktails as well. Of course. Use the whiskey, make cocktails. It's a great way to do it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually, Stuart, just with the best way to enjoy these, and I know you're half Scottish, so I am going to ask you anyway, neat, ice, or in a cocktail?
It's one of those things, I wouldn't tell you how to eat your steak, I wouldn't tell you how to drink your whiskey. I'd always recommend trying it straight first. Try it neat, have a sip as it is, and then even try a drop of water and see how the flavours progress and change. But if you like your whiskey with ice, I mean, of course, in Singapore it's very hot normally. There's only really two types of weather there, hot and very, very hot. So what I'd say is, if you like it with ice, yeah, do it. Try with ice. And again, right now in Singapore, there are so many amazing cocktail bars. I mean, the cocktail bars there are fantastic, some of the best in the world. So I would say, again, ask your bartender to make something with this, whether it be, more highball, fresh and fruity, or if it's more towards the heavy side, more classic side. I think the best thing about our new range is there's sort of something for everyone.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And Stuart, I mean, we do have amazing bars here, amazing cocktail bars. Mention a couple of bars where we can go and enjoy a Benriach in Singapore.
Sure. Right now, I mean, of course, the new stuff just arrived, so we're still slowly getting it into everywhere. And of course, there are so many bars at Iberton. But right now, I mean, my friends at the Cooperage, with it being more of a whiskey bar, they have it. They have the stuff there. And they also have some of the older Benriach as well, which you can kind of compare between. Right now, the hotel bars have our Benriach. Grapevine has our Benriach to try. There are a few bars that have already started creating cocktails. Mm-hmm. So definitely go and check it out and see what there is.
Fantastic. And as you say, the new collection is slowly making its way into Singapore, other Singapore bars as well. Details on how we can get our hands otherwise on buying Benriach and, pricing details, Stuart.
Sure. I mean, right now, we have our own company at Brown-Forman Shopee. We have our Brown-Forman official Shopee site where you can buy our whiskey. Mm-hmm. Also, I think Lazada has it as well. Okay. So you can get on there and check it out. I mean, again, I haven't been in Singapore for a while. It's been just over a year since I was last in Singapore. And that was the last time I was on an airplane as well.
I think it's for many of us as well. And the spelling, of course, of Benriach is B-E-N. Yep.
R-I-A-C-H.
Yeah, R-I-A-C-H. Okay. Stuart, it's been such a pleasure speaking to you and finding out more about this very special whiskey. Wishing you all the very best in Taiwan. Stay safe and healthy. And we look forward to welcoming you to Singapore when we can all travel.
And I look forward to coming back.
Thank you so much. I've been speaking with Stuart Fear. He's the Asia Regional Ambassador for Benriach. Eat and Drink Singapore continues after the news.